Hello and welcome to Food to Go, the podcast brought to you by New Food. My name is Joshua Minchin. I'm the editor of New Food. And this episode is, of course, brought to you in partnership with Merck Life Science 2. It's also brought to you by Grace Guller, New Food assistant editor, sat across from me. Different entry this week, Grace.
That's a really exciting, Josh,
Yeah.
it's thrown me off a little bit, I'm not going to lie.
Just mixing things up. What have you been up to recently?
Well, it was the big day last week, wasn't it?
Valentine's Day?
No, Pancake Day. It was New Food. We're talking about food, Josh.
No, I agree. Pancake Day is far more important. Shrove Tuesday, I think.
Okay, Shrove Tuesday, Pancake Day, whatever you call it, but I think everyone wants to know.
My grandma will be very, very cross if she's listening. If you call it Pancake Day, strictly Shrove Tuesday in our house.
Okay, let's switch to Shrove Tuesday. What did you have on your pancakes on Shrove Tuesday?
Often on Pancake Day / Shrove Tuesday, we go pancakes full dinner. So we have savoury pancakes to start, which is basically an omelette. Little break. Nutella. I mean, I'm a sweet tooth, so I'm Nutella all the way, really.
Nutella is one thing I just don't really like.
Oh no, it's good in the pancake. What I did this year though, I actually got a Kinder Bueno and melted it into the pancake.
Oh wow.
Yeah, good.
When
really
it was in the
good.
pan?
Yeah.
Are you in charge of flipping the pancakes or?
Yeah, I am. I wasn't at home when we were kids. We used to do one each. But I don't know, so I've learned. I've got a technique down. How about you? No. I reckon you're a terrible flipper.
See, this is where you're wrong. I was designated flipper. I think after 2 or 3 bad ones, you get quite good at it. So I think I must have done about 15. Me and my friends were all sat around the table. So
first pancake's always done anyway. You have to almost.
You put it on a separate plate and pretend it never happened.
Carry on. Yeah, correct. You did an article. Just this will be the most healthy pancake day yet, didn't you?
Yeah, potentially. I think consumers, from what I've heard, consumers' tastes are shifting and they want to include different types of pancakes, switching it up. I think it's the same day every year and they want to make changes to their ingredients list. So go and check that article out on New Food if you're not tired of Shrove Tuesday or Pancake Day already.
Content. We should turn to the topic in hand though.
We should. It's got nothing to do with pancakes whatsoever.
It hasn't, but it's interesting. Well, more interesting than pancakes, I'd argue. We're going to talk about AI today. There's been a lot of AI chatter, I'd say, in the last 12 months. I don't know if you remember when sort of ChatGPT broke
the internet.
Pretty much. It was funny because it's been kind of part of our lives for a while, and ChatGPT's been around for a long time, and all of a sudden, within like a few weeks, it just kind of gained this momentum. So yeah, it was a strange time. We started using it quite a lot here at New Food. But really, we want to find out how it can be used or potentially be used in the food industry, because it's going to affect every single industry around the world very quickly. So we were quite curious to find out what role it might play in our sector. We had a great session at Food Integrity Global 2023 in London. We welcomed several expert speakers to discuss the potential future uses of AI, how it might affect what we do day to day. That was quite theoretical, quite kind of grand plans, but we wanted this time to get into more on the ground, real tangible applications, didn't we? Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, we've got 2 guests for this little mini series, 2 episodes, 2 guests. The first of which is I always like to call a food safety titan.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So we spoke to Jorge Hernandez from the Wendy's company in the US. Jorge's a great friend of New Food. I think I said in my interviews, actually, it's his hat trick of Food to Go appearances. Yeah, it's his 3rd time. So he spoke at our events, he writes for New Food fairly regularly. Always love things, always such a good font of knowledge when it comes to food safety. And both himself and Wendy's doing some really, really exciting stuff when it comes to using AI to enhance food safety. So I thought he'd be a great place to start, if you like, our quest to find out how this technology is actually going to make a difference to our sector.
Definitely agree, Josh. I think it's time to hear a little bit about behind the scenes AI use at the Wendy's company and see how they put it to good use.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us on Food to Go. You're somewhat of a Food to Go veteran. I think this is your 3rd appearance, so it's your hat trick. Thank you very much for coming on a 3rd time.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation, Josh. I found it, the conversations very insightful and enlightening, so I'm always happy to join and help.
And we're always happy to have you on. Now, we've spoken to you in lots of different guises over the last few years at New Food, always around food safety, because it's your passion, isn't it, and it's your expertise. But today we're going to have a slightly different conversation, because I know that you're very excited about what AI can do for the food and beverage industry. So before we kind of get into the detail, Just quickly tell me and our audience, how are you using AI to improve food safety at the Wendy's company?
So AI, it seems like it's a very interesting technology for us. It allows us to be able to use different streams of data and start training and analyzing it to develop what we call models. And what we're looking for is, to try to understand where a particular location, a particular market, or the company as a whole is trending on the strengths of food safety, quality assurance, regulatory compliance, and trying to prevent problems when there is when the data is telling us that something is happening to the system. I know it's a little bit esoteric, but let me give you an example. It allows to add information from temperatures to audit inspections to third-party inspections to all kinds of other data, and being able to aggregate it and give us a picture of what is that system that into the delivery of food into the restaurant and while it's at the restaurant to the customer, that then we can start looking where the performance is and how different interventions affected positively or negatively at new equipment, new processes, new procedures, new foods, and being able to start not only seeing how we're doing, but hopefully start being a little bit more predictive about the things that can happen, if we change the inputs into that model. Does that make sense, Josh?
It does, and it always blows my mind when I have this conversation with experts like yourself, because food safety in my head is inherently reactive. We're always reacting to things that have happened. But with this new technology and this new way of working, we could intercept problems before they even become problems, which I always find so interesting. So what exactly are you looking for in the thousands and thousands of data entries? Are you looking for a specific change, a specific marker that would set the alarm bells ringing and lead to a positive intervention?
There is actually that's a very good question. We know, and you're absolutely right. Food safety and quality, by the way, too, or even regulatory compliance, are very, very reactive. Sometimes we wait until something happens to be able to go back and look at it. But that kind of information starts to build up a little bit of data that tells us why that happened. When you do what we call root cause analysis, what are the things that transpired? There are the changes that happen from the product when it was grown, processed, manufactured, delivered, or at the store that led to a problem. We learn a lot about it if you do it right. So being able to do those things and being able to monitor as much as possible real time of what's happening allow you to start being able to say, oh, we're going in that direction. Oh, something happened, to be able to tell us this, when we seen it before, it led to that. So we can start being more preventive. In my mind, there is a step before be predictive. It is be more preventive. And that prevention step is when you see changes. The data usually runs, within a certain parameters, but all of a sudden you see a spike, good or bad, going in a positive manner or in a negative manner. Then what we do is go back and look at it. Why did that happen? And does that have repercussions down the road to the product, to the processes, to the equipment, to the customer, after all?
Hi, we've spoken before about the difficulty, the challenge of maintaining quality and consistency across hundreds, thousands of locations. Does this really aid with that? That always just seemed to me like a superhuman feat that you pull off at Wendy's. Does the technology make it a little bit easier to maintain that level across so many different sites?
Yes, of course. Because like I said, we're able to aggregate. In the past, we have a lot of this data, but it was segregated, it was in silos, and it was in all kinds of forms and shapes. So what it allows us, and by the way, I'm not saying that we are very advanced to it. I would consider here in the food safety program at Wendy's, we're just initiating a journey that is probably going to give a lot more rewards down the road. But we started by starting to put in all the data and standardizing it into a form that we can put it into a system that allows us to map it out and being able to use it, whether it is, like I said, information from the product, whether it's temperature, color, size of things at a manufacturing facility, and start putting how does that change shelf life, as it goes down the road from California to New York. different times, different temperatures, and things like that. And how does that change when it gets into the restaurant? It gets used within a certain amount of time, and all of the things to be able to do that. So that's where we are. We started to develop some what I call early models, or we started to develop some. We're playing with some projects that allows us to be able to see. Like I said before, if something happens, let's say en route. Right now, we in the United States, we're going through some snowstorms, and it's not unusual for a truck to get stuck in a location for a period of time, an additional day or two sometimes. Roads get blocked, things that happen. How is that going to impact the restaurant, right? What is the shelf life going to be when you get there? And then we got to make sure that it gets the temperature that we needed on the road. But then on the other side, what do we need to do to make sure that that product is used a lot faster so that the quality of the product doesn't impact the customer perception of our burgers? Now, I'm using the United States, but that can be done on a global basis. The challenge becomes for me, and you and I have been talking about this, when there is different standards and regulations across the board that force us to change a little bit our policies and procedures or the way that we need to work in different countries. It's not uniform. So with AI or with the use of data, we can start accounting for those changes too, right? We have, whether it's a temperature or a type of chemical that we use for sanitizing, for example, or things of that. So we're able to start to understand all of that a little bit better. And hopefully, when we know that something is going to happen to our supply chain, we can adapt at the restaurant so that the consistency remains for the customer, which is our ultimate goal. Okay, we are not there, but we're in the beginnings of this journey, which allows us to do that on a global basis. Does that make sense, Josh?
It does, absolutely. Jorge, you mentioned masses of data entry points there and standardizing data, which is, I've been to so many event sessions around the world where everyone talks about data sharing, data formatting. Would you ever consider sharing data with companies of a similar size, similar operation, as after all, food safety is a non-compete issue? Is that something that you'd ever look to explore?
It's an interesting concept, and I would be open to it, but data is proprietary, right? In fact, one of the things, one of the rocks we had to move over the road is how do we get some data from our suppliers, more than what we usually get, and some of them have been a little bit more willing to do that, other ones not so much because it is proprietary. The data that I'm able to get today is there that we have the right to do because the contracts that we have with everybody that we work along the supply chain. That's where it becomes a little bit more challenging. Now, I can see a world in the future where this becomes a little bit more standardized and you're able to share it without actually losing any of the proprietary integrity of that data in that exchange. And that is what everybody is very, very concerned. There are things in there that are specific, in our case, to a specific product, equipment, facility, that would be very difficult to share with others. If we can somehow standardize and lose some of that, that would make it a lot easier. And that's why I understand why others don't want to send similar data about their processes, their equipment, their procedures, or the things that they use in their business.
That makes sense. I was taking a slightly different direction. You said that you're at the start of your journey at Wendy when it comes to implementing AI. Have you faced skepticism from colleagues when implementing these programs? Is there a bit of a fear factor about allowing the data to take on more responsibility for your decision making?
You're absolutely right. There is. Actually, I find two. One of them is exactly what you have, right? A lot of skepticism and a lot of how are you going to do? What are you going to do with our data? How are you going to use it? And I have to show them. I have to prove them. Well, first of all, in a lot of cases, we're already using it. You're already giving it to us. What is different now is that we're starting to aggregate with other types of data that allows us to give us more. That's what I call a model. It gives a little bigger perception of it, right? Imagine a painting, of different colors, of different dots, right? And all of a sudden it starts developing a picture. That's every stream of data is a piece of, is a point of color that when you put it with others, it starts giving you a model or a different picture of what's happening on a regular basis in one event, in one product, in one facility, blah blah blah. So some of them are very, very skeptical. You're absolutely right. Especially in a lot of cases, we really want to know a little bit more about how that facilities function, and we can get a little bit about what they do for us, which is what the facility does. I'm not saying we're 50-50, but once we try to explain what we're doing, and more important, what we're trying to share with them is, look, this is how it can benefit you. We can provide you information about how your product is going to be performing. If we can get this information on the onset, then it usually opens a lot more of the doors. The other part that is very interesting is it's that there is the people who believe that just because you started this project, you're going to be able to solve the world. So they get very frustrated that you cannot, be able to do it all that in a day or in a week. At the beginning, they're gung-ho and stuff like that, but they don't understand that we're building the model. And by the way, the models change. And what we're finding, in some cases, changes with location, changes with seasons, and all of those things we need to understand. I said we're at the beginning of the journey, but we've been in this journey for about 3 years now, and I don't have the ultimate solution that a lot of people are expecting, right? So they get frustrated and it's like, well, this is not going to work. No, it's working. We're learning, and we'll keep to learn and adapt as we go. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You push a button and everything happens overnight. Especially when it comes to food safety and quality, we seem to be a little bit behind other industries, pharmaceuticals, cars, automotive industries, all of those guys. I'm learning from some of those guys in the things that they're doing because they seem to be a little bit more apt to working with this kind of evolution, with this kind of new way of thinking. When I come into my own world, I do find, like I said, some of those who are very skeptical, some of those who want to solve it overnight, and both of them are a little bit not what I really need. I need somebody who's committed to it, to understand it, and to know that we're going to learn together and become better over time, not overnight.
Great. If I were to put you on the spot and ask you what the most important topic we cover here at New Food is, what do you think you'd say?
I think I'd have to go with food safety, Josh.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. I mean, we literally write about it every single day, and that's because we know that it's extremely important to all of our listeners, and it's also important to our podcast partner, Merck Life Science too, who are dedicated to providing safe and nutritious food for the entire world.
That's absolutely right, Josh. We're very selective on who we partner with for the podcast, and we know that Merck shares the belief of so many of our audience. The innovation and detailed attention to quality has the ability to transform the way we eat and nourish our bodies.
They've been at it for quite a while too, operating for a whopping 356 years. Merck has more than just a little bit of experience, but they've also got the innovation and cutting-edge technology to ensure reliability and efficiency in your food lab and manufacturing sites.
Be it to verify existing methods, stay on top of changing regulations, or to adopt the latest technologies, you can find it all on sigmaaldrich.com/food testing hero. It's also worth bearing in mind that Merck operates as Millipore Sigma in the US and Canada.
If you missed that URL, don't worry, we'll make sure we drop it in the episode description. Thank you so much to Merck for supporting Food to Go. Make sure you get in touch with your local Merck or Millipore Sigma food safety expert for any testing solutions you require. Back to the podcast. Why do you think that is? Because I've heard that a couple of times, Jorge, from different people, that food and bev is a little bit slow and a bit behind the curve when it comes to using AI. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's our nature. We are scientists and technicians by trade. This is what we study for, and we like to see things already finished, already done. We're not very much into innovation, or at least not naturally. I really don't know why it seems to be, I don't say prevalent, and it's not across the board, Judge. I don't like to do that, but there is a lot of that. There is also a third group, who said what I call the cheering squad, the ones who sit in the sidelines and say go. Once you do it, then I'll come in. They don't want to invest the time, the money, the things until they see that it works, and then they want to come into it. And like, well, that's fine. But the advantage that I will have in my program over them is that I will make it a lot more consistent. My quality will improve, my food safety will improve, and then it will have to wait time until they put those investments to put those things to be able to do that. So So those are the kinds of people that I find in this environment.
The other aspect of this conversation, which I want to get your opinion on, is how much responsibility you give the machine, the AI. At what point does a human step in and make the call, or do you leave it all up to the machine? If it sees as we said, sees those markers, sees those parameters, and sparks a warning, do you trust what it says inherently, or are there still humans, I suppose, behind it, making sure that everything's ticking along? That dichotomy really interests me.
That is a very interesting question, and one that comes often, especially when we talk internally with my staff and stuff like that. Are we trying to replace people? This is my personal opinion. I don't think so. I think the future will still need those people. Remember, we're using data, we're using models. At the end of the day, I still want a person to be able to make those decisions. It's not something that the AI is going to be able to get us to it. One of the things that we're starting to bump into it, Josh, is that as I said, when we have an event where something happens, we learn from it and we start just saying, when this happened, we did this and it worked, or it didn't work, even better. So what I have is somebody at the end of this who will have all this data until something changed. And then the system will say, look, last time this changed, these things work, this thing didn't work. Which one do you want to do? Versus let the system automatically do it, right? I still want that person to be able to make that decision, because it is in that part that I don't think the machines, at least not in my lifetime, will be able to get to. What I do see, I don't see this type of technology replacing people, but I do see people who don't use or understand the technology being replaced by people who understand the technology to be able to use it in a better way. So this is something that I keep telling my team, something that we need to learn. It's a tool, not a solution. You're the solution. You are the person who is thinking. You're the one who has a background. But I'm just giving you more information, more data, more models, more simulations, if you will, for you to make the final decision and be responsible and accountable for those decisions at the end of the day. So that's the way more that I see it going, Josh, than the other way, than replacing and all of that. I just don't see it.
And from a regulatory standpoint, how receptive, how encouraging are regulators, and I'm thinking in the US in particular, in terms of utilise this technology? Because food regulators can be famously very slow to adapt to change. How have you find that response from FDA, state agencies, etc.?
Today, there has been some indications in the United States that they're open to conversations, right? But it falls into the group like, show me the results versus, you know what I mean? And like I said, we're in a journey. Like, think about it. I just said we've been here in a 3-year journey already, and I don't have all of the answers, right? But I continue to be. But I tell you that now I have more answers than I had 3 years ago or 2 years ago, and I expect by the end of this year I'll have more and more and more and more, right? So it is not an overnight solution; it's an overtime solution. So. And the other problem that comes into some of those conversations is they want all the data, right? They want all of the information. They want to be able to do that. And like I said, we haven't found a way to remove some of the things that are sensitive, that are proprietary, that I'm not sure, would be good to share at this point, with the regulatory community especially. Because I'm not afraid they'll be able to understand it, and be able to do that. They do have some laws they have to follow. They have some requirements that they have to do, and in some cases this is a little bit of gray, and you never know how they're going to take that. That said, I do see a future where we both grow together towards the same goal. Remember, I said a future where we'll be able to take that information, or mass that information out, be able to do things with that information that allows us to be able to share more openly with, even with the regulatory community. But not at this time. Internationally, I do hear some things, but nothing like at this point like the U.S.
You said there that you're 3 years into your journey and you've got more answers now than you had 3 years ago, which is very encouraging. If I were to speak to you in another 3 years, 5 years' time, where do you expect Wendy's and indeed the entire F&B sector would be in terms of using AI? Do you think that we'll ever get to a stage where a computer system can make decisions far quicker than we can and respond quicker than we can?
It's difficult to say where we'll be because, like I said, we're building the road as we're driving through it. So sometimes we find something really cool and we go faster, but sometimes we find some of this, what I call rocks on the road, and we have to move them and work around them and go slower, right? Right now, we're mapping our system. We're mapping, we're beginning to map our supply chain globally. We start developing models. Like I said, we have a couple of different projects that will be played out this year. And then that, depending on how they go, we will be in a much better position at the end of the year and start using the information to be able to do that. I'm not real time, but I'm not that far back yet. It is when it gets to the real time that it's going to be very, very interesting. The other thing is, and I want to put this in your mind, Josh, as you discuss this, because I feel like as my company, and this is what I tell my leaders, so my company is going to be able to do that. We're working in an environment that is changing. Regulations are changing, situations are changing, but more important, the environment, global warming is changing, and that is having an impact on food safety and quality, right? Where we buy things from, or in the the ecology, the weather, all of those things are changing. Our products are changing, how things are changing, the risks that today we evaluate. So that is another interesting position that I see us as we go in one road. We're going to have to encounter these changes, and hopefully, by being able to use, AI, being able to use, the models that we build, the information that we have, the tools that we have, we should be able to see them sooner and not wait until we have, a problem that trying to solve, because we'll start to be able to see those changes, right, in the microbiology of the products, or in the things they're refining. And this is where I really looking to the regulatory agencies, and mostly the government agencies, or organizations like CDC, FDA, USDA, or globally, their counterparts, where they're starting to find different pathogens, so the pathogens coming in different types of foods or things like that, to be able to inform us, so that as we start grading, we add that risk, we add that piece of information, or that piece of data that we're looking for as we continue to grow into the models that we're building.
Well, Grace, as I did the interview, I'll pass over to you. First of all, what did you think, apart from the fact that Jorge is, as ever, a brilliant interviewee?
Well, straight off the bat, I thought that was a really fantastic interview,
great,
Josh. And I love how he always gives a little bit behind the scenes, so you know what's actually going on, especially with AI, because I think it's quite an exciting topic, but not many people want to talk about how they're actually utilising it.
We found that, haven't we? It's an exciting topic, but there's quite a lot of caution, which is understandable. What jumped out at you?
I think I've got a quote here that he said, and I think he repeated this in different forms throughout the interview, but he said it's important to not run before you can walk with AI. And I think this is leading back to the whole excitement thing. People really assuming that this could massively change the industry, robots could be taking over, it's going to impact people's jobs, but ultimately Jorge thinks that humans will always be needed and they need to be the ultimate decision makers, and AI is going to be used as a really powerful tool to aid those food safety decisions.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about it, haven't we, before, in terms of it, when we use it here in our work, about it being just another tool like a keyboard or a calculator or a laptop. It just becomes part of your arsenal rather than a kind of all-powerful thing that you use. And I think Jorge kind of sees it in a similar way, in that it will throw up kind of scenarios that will throw up decisions to be made, but ultimately he sees humans always making those calls. But AI is there to streamline data gathering and data analysis and give humans decisions. So here's what we think about this. Here's what scenario X could happen. Do you want to do Y or Z?
I think that really calms a lot of panic in the sector, because I know a few months ago, especially, like you say, when ChatGPT came over, not just in the food sector, in any job sector, people worried that their jobs would be taken. So to hear Jorge say that, and to know how Wendy's has actually been utilising AI over the past 3 years, they've been kind of making this model. No, it's not a new thing, and it's constantly evolving, which is what he said. It's not something that they can go and take to regulators and say, oh, this is the formula we've come up with everything that's happening, like AI developments, even ChatGPT, for example, there's constant progress being made. So it's not a finished thing, constantly evolving. And I think he made a really interesting point actually about climate change. So the climate around the world is changing, so AI is helping with that as well. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, that is interesting. It's potentially going to have the answers for equations that we don't even know yet. Haven't even got the equation written down, let alone the answer. So that's really, really exciting.
Jorge actually had a really interesting example that links to climate change. He was talking about with more extreme weather events happening, like when food's being transported across the US, sometimes kind of freak storms and things like this can impact food getting from A to B. So AI being used to kind of predict and stop lorries from going in different directions.
Yeah, that was interesting. That's what we're really after in this podcast, is real actionable applications of AI, rather than talking about it in this kind of big theoretical food safety space. I thought the data points were interesting.
Sharing data.
I'm always curious, and I always try and get it out of F&B manufacturers and retailers, because everyone gets a little bit shifty when you start talking about data sharing. I mean, I don't see how this works long term without some kind of form of more open data sharing. But
I think at the moment, companies are, very hesitant to be sharing data.
And rightly so, it is sensitive.
Yeah, completely. And I think also data safety, like data leaks, with the amount of AI people are going to be using and how much data is going to be out there to access. I think it can be quite scary, like when you think about it like that. But like he says, the more data that's shared, the potentially safer our food system can be.
Absolutely. And food safety is a non-compete issue. We always hear that. So in theory, that would mean that
everyone should be sharing their data around the world.
That's not doable.
No.
But I was interested to hear that Jorge was open to the idea. If you guarantee certain things, he was fairly open to the idea of sharing and using other data and third-party data, as we say, as long as you could guarantee that it'd be safe. So that's, I suppose, the practical, broad brush, how it's being used in the industry at the moment. Next time we're going to speak to a professor from Wageningen University, Bas van der Velden, who is going to give us the more theoretical approach and where this technology could go in terms of application, but still staying in that kind of grounded, how we're going to use it attitude. But I'm really excited to hear what Bas has to say.
I'm excited to hear science from the scientist about
AI.
Exactly. I think that'd be really good. But fantastic interview, Josh, and really interesting. Great to hear from Jorge as always.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to Jorge for his time, and thank you to you for listening, and to Merck, of course, for partnering Food to Go. It's wouldn't be possible without them. Time for the platforms. You can get Food to Go on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Podcasts, on Google Podcasts. You can also get all our episodes on the New Food website. Just go to newfoodmagazine.com and hit the podcast tab. If you're not sure where to find Food to Go, just head to the website and there'll be a few directions there for where to best listen. Thank you, Grace. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.